Guten Abend! Welcome to another episode of Faye's Language Adventures, aka Frau Lopez. So today we're going to be looking at something that the Germans call the Konjunktiv II, not to be confused with Konjunktiv I, which is completely different. Okay, so this is called the Konjunktiv II, but that's basically kind of a posh way of saying the conditional. Now, you might recognise the word the conditional from English. Normally we would say would, for example, would or could or should. However, in German, slightly different. So the Konjunktiv II is used to express some different things. So for example, dreams, like if I had more money, I would buy a new Mercedes. It can be used to express politeness. So for example, rather than saying I want, you could say I would like. And it can also be used for recommendations or suggestions. So for example, if I were you, I wouldn't go outside right now. What was that, Wolfgang? You need help to form it? No problem. So how do we form the Konjunktiv II in German? Now hold your horses, be patient here. I know you've got a lot more time because of the quarantine, but this is a bit complicated. It's not as easy as in English, in my humble opinion, okay? So just bear with me for now. We're going to start off with the easy way, which is würden. Obviously you need to conjugate it depending on who's doing the action, plus infinitive. Now, as we learned from my previous videos, the infinitive is the long form of the verb, which hasn't been conjugated yet, which normally in German ends in the letters en. So for example, spielen, essen, trinken, gehen, machen und so weiter. Okay, so how do we conjugate it? It's quite straightforward. You can fast forward if you know this bit already. Ich würde, du würdest, sehr gut. Sie, es, man würde. Wir würden. Ihr würdet. Und sie würden. And make sure you put the umlaut. I'm not just doing that to look pretty, it's really important. If you don't have the umlaut, then you're changing the whole tense. So you need to have that. And then we're going to plus infinitive. So, for example, in order to say I would play, I could say ich würde spielen. To say I would play tennis, ich würde Tennis spielen. So it follows the normal word order pattern. You've got the subject, you've got the first verb in the sentence, you have the time, manner, then the place, and the infinitive at the very end. Remember, the würden is conjugated, the infinitive isn't. So, of course, just as German is always unnecessarily complicated, there are complications. So, we're not going to use the würden plus infinitive construction with some verbs. For example, with the auxiliary verbs sein and haben, okay? So, even though you could technically say, ich würde sein to mean I would be, it sounds quite weird in German and no one really says it, even though I guess they would probably understand what you meant. So we're going to use this, ich wäre, okay, two syllables, wäre, I would be. Now as you can see, it kind of looks a little bit like the imperfect, so we've got, it looks like ich war, that you're usually from the imperfect, and then add an umlaut and then the e on the end. And you're going to do this for all of them conjugated. For example, du wärest, wäre, wir wären. Okay, so you need to use the imperfect conjugations and then add the umlaut and make sure you add in the correct ending. And the same with haben. So although one would probably understand you if you said ich würde haben, again, it's not that common, it sounds a bit odd. So we're going to use the much more commonly used ich hätte. So again, you can see it's a little bit like the imperfect form ich hatte, which means I had, but we're going to add the umlaut there. We're not going to add another e because that would look really weird, like hätte. Okay, so we don't need to add that extra e. Ich hätte, which means I would have. And just like with the sein formation, you can say du hättest, hätte, wir hätten, ihr hättet, sie hätten. Okay, so you're going to use the imperfect or Präteritum, maybe you learnt it as that, conjugations, but you need to be adding that umlaut. It changes the pronunciation and the meaning, so you have to be really careful. Okay, I'm just going to show you what I mean. Ooh, too old for this. Ich hatte is imperfect, meaning I had, and ich hätte, meaning I would have. Okay, so as well as the auxiliary verb sein and haben, we also don't use the würde plus infinitive construction for the other modal verbs. For example, we wouldn't say ich würde können to mean I would be able to, or ich würde müssen, even though again people would probably understand you, but it just sounds a bit off. So we're going to use these conjugations, and yeah, they follow the normal endings as well. So ich könnte for I would be able to, but du könntest, wir könnten, sie könnten, und so weiter. So we've got ich dürfte coming from the infinitive dürfen to mean I would be allowed to. Ich könnte, I would be able to, or I would can, but obviously it sounds a bit odd. Ich möchte, you guys are used to that from year 7. Ich möchte, I would like, coming from the infinitive mögen. Ich müsste, I would have to. Ich sollte and ich wollte, I should be able to and I would want to. But obviously they look like the imperfects, so just be careful with them. You just have to know from the context. Again, the umlaut is really, really important because, as you know, if you don't put that with the umlaut, then you're saying ich konnte, which is then past tense, it's not conditional. So it's really, really important that you get the pronunciation correct and also the punctuation. So pronunciation and punctuation. Okay, so we're nearly done, so I hope you're still with me, and we're just going to do one last little bit, how to put them into a sentence. Okay, so one last important bit that you really, really need to understand, because otherwise you're going to translate them wrong, is that when we translate something into English, we use one of the clauses is the past tense and the other is conditional, whereas German uses conditional twice, and this causes confusion when Germans are also saying things into English as well as English into German, so pay attention. As you can see with this sentence here, wenn ich mehr Geld hätte, würde ich ein neues Auto kaufen. As you can see, we've got two versions of the conditional here. We've got hätte, remember we're going to use hätte instead of würde haben, and then we've got a normal conditional here, würde kaufen. In English this would translate to, if I had more money, I would buy a car. Whereas when Germans say it, they say, if I would have more money, I would buy a new car. So you just got to be really careful. In English, we use past tense plus conditional. In German, you're going to have two conditional clauses next to each other. So conditional here and conditional there. If you don't do it, then it's probably going to be wrong. So just be really, really careful. What I'm going to do now is I am going to put some questions for you on this video. And then if you want to send me your answers, I will check them for you, or in about a week or so, I'll put the answers up. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed this video. Let's see if Wolfgang got it. He looks a little bit perplexed, to be honest. I think he's going to have a beard to take off the edge. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. And any questions, just ask in the comments.